Hello, I'm Darren Magee and welcome to my Mental Health Information and Awareness channel. Now, today's question asks if I would explain borderline personality disorder, or BPD as it's often referred to, and for the rest of this video I'll refer to it as BPD. It's a lot easier to say. If you like this video, if you find it helpful, please check out my other videos on mental health related topics and please consider subscribing to my channel. Now, at the time of the making of this video, there are 4 different recognized types of BPD. Those being discouraged, sometimes referred to as quiet or high functioning borderline, self-destructive borderline, impulsive borderline, and finally petulant borderline. But for today's video, I'm just going to cover borderline personality in general. So first of all, BPD is part of the cluster B personality group. Now that's characterized by erratic and unpredictable behavior. People with BPD tend to be very sensitive. It has been described as like having an exposed nerve ending. Now, sometimes the smallest thing can trigger an intense emotional reaction, which can be problematic to themselves and to the people around them. Now, most mental health professionals believe that borderline personality comes from a combination of inherited or internal biological factors and external environmental factors such as traumatic experiences in childhood. Now, someone with BPD may feel a wavering sense of who they are, what they are. Their self image, likes, dislikes, their goals, they may change so often that life can seem very confusing for them, very unclear. They have difficulty regulating how they feel, and as a result of that, relationships are often unstable. Now, I think those relationships are unstable because people with BPD are in a constant state of high alert. Fight or flight is very easily triggered. And once triggered, whatever someone with BPD is feeling, it becomes intense, it becomes magnified. The emotive part of the brain, it is now in full control. The cognitive, rational part of the brain, not so much. Now, this often means that a lot of reactions are out of proportion to what's really happening. Now, according to DSM-5, there are 9 major categories that make up BPD. To be diagnosed, someone would have to meet at least 5 of the criteria, and this, like all personality disorders, means that it can manifest itself in many different ways. I liken it to like a spectrum. There are many different colors, many different shades. Some characteristics may be more prevalent than others, some may not be there at all. But in order to meet those 5 criteria, the criteria must be inflexible, pervasive, long-standing, and lead to significant distress or impairment. Now, I sum that up by saying it has to be long-term, consistent, and looking at the negative impact it has on someone's day-to-day functioning and the negative impact it has on their relationships with others as well as themselves. So let's look at the 9 criteria. The first one is the fear of abandonment. Now, people with BPD are often terrified. They are terrified of being abandoned. They are terrified of being left alone. So something like a friend being late for something, a partner being late home, somebody not replying to a text straight away, that can trigger an intense fear. Now, that fear of abandonment can lead to frantic efforts on that person's part to try and keep the other person close. Now, on one hand, it may involve constantly trying to appease them, constantly compromising, or on the other side of that, it could lead them to, say, physically blocking their path if they tried to leave. But sadly, the very thing that person does to try and keep someone else close. Now, if they're in a relationship with someone who's very abusive, very toxic, that can lead them to being open, to being abused and mistreated. The other side of that, the other person, what they're doing to try and keep them close can actually drive them away. Which leads me on to number 2, unstable relationships. Now, people with BPD tend to have relationships that are both intense and short lived. Now, they may fall in love, they may become infatuated quite quickly. Sometimes the belief is that this is the one who's going to make me feel whole, this is the one who's going to completely. But more often than not, they are very quickly disappointed whenever the real and the ideal don't quite meet up. So the relationship swings from being perfect to being unbearable. There's no in between. I've heard this characterized before as, I hate you, don't leave me. So quite often the partner, the friends, even family members who are on the wrong end of these rapid mood swings, it goes from a relationship of devotion and idealization to anger and hatred very quickly. and then back again. Criteria number 3, an unclear or shifting self-image. Now, this means the person has an unstable sense of self, an unstable view of themselves. There are times when they may feel okay about themselves. They may feel quite good about themselves, something they've accomplished, their new hairdo, their new job, whatever it is. Other times they hate themselves. They believe themselves to be not enough. They are ugly. They are unlovable. Everything goes wrong for them. Their goals in life may constantly change. They may change direction in their careers. They may change halfway through a course they're doing, an educational course, change their religion, change their values. They're doing this often hoping to find some sense of self. Criteria number 4, impulsive, self-destructive behaviors. Now, this involves harmful, sensation seeking behaviors, particularly when upset. Now, this could involve drinking recklessly, driving recklessly, unprotected or risky sex with strangers, binge eating junk food. It may involve impulsive spending, overdoing it with alcohol or drugs. Now, these behaviors are aimed at escaping that moment's distress, hoping to feel better in that moment, but ultimately, they're hurting themselves. They are hurting the people around them. Number 5, self-harm. Self-harming behavior and suicidal ideation is common in BPD. Now, suicidal behaviors may include thinking about suicide, making gestures or threats, even carrying out a suicide attempt. Now, self-harm encompasses everything from cutting, burning, pretty much anything that involves someone physically hurting themselves. Criteria number 6, extreme emotional mood swings. Again, common with BPD are unstable moods and emotions that can change instantly, from feeling excited to feeling despondent almost instantly. The most innocuous thing that other people can just ignore, wouldn't even notice or even care about, can send someone with BPD into an emotional tailspin. Now, although intense, the mood swings can generally pass anywhere from, say, a few minutes to perhaps a few hours, but this can be problematic for the person with BPD. It's also problematic for their family members, their partners, their friends, because again, those mood swings can be quite destructive. Number 7, chronic feelings of emptiness. Now, a common theme that comes up with people with BPD is they often say they have this feeling of emptiness. They feel as if there's something missing. They lack something. They do not feel complete. Some would say they feel as if they are nothing. They are worth nothing. There are times that feeling of emptiness is so uncomfortable, so unsettling, that people try to fill it with food, sex, drugs, alcohol, etc. But whatever it is they do, it's never really satisfying. It doesn't take away that feeling of emptiness. Criteria number 8, explosive anger. People with BPT struggle to contain their anger. Now, once that fuse is lit, that temper can be very difficult to control. This may involve yelling, throwing things, becoming aggressive. It is being consumed by rage, but I think it's important to remember and to recognize that that anger is not always explosive with BPD. Sometimes it is implosive. People with BPD often spend a lot of time being angry at themselves over things like not meeting expectations, unrealistic expectations, blaming themselves when things just don't work out. Last one, number 9, feeling suspicious or out of touch with reality. Now, people with BPD can struggle with suspicious thoughts over other people, their motives, their agendas. They can be overly cautious and defensive, assuming that others are going to betray them or hurt them somehow. The more stress, the more consumed by paranoia, the more out of touch with reality they feel. And some people with BPD have described this as feeling detached from their own body. Now, like I say, in order to be diagnosed with BPD, someone would have to meet at least 5 of those criteria, meet them consistently, persistently, and it would need to have been present for some time. I think it's also fair to say that when behaving in some of the ways mentioned earlier, many people with BPD feel intense regret and shame, but still struggling to regulate how they feel, so they go through that cycle again. Borderline personality disorder is often diagnosed alongside a cocurring disorder, such as an eating disorder, an anxiety disorder, substance misuse. But is borderline personality disorder treatable? Well, yes, it is, and with the help of a mental health professional, there are ways to learn how to regulate thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Grounding exercises can help bring someone back into the moment, help them to respond rather than react. But that's a brief outline of borderline personality disorder. If you have any comments or questions, experiences of your own, please feel free to use the comment box below. I do like reading and responding to your comments whenever I can. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel for future updates on mental health related topics. And until next time, thanks for watching.